Hello and welcome to episode number 147, where I talk about the immune system and particularly boosting your immune system, which is really important now at the transition of the seasons and also with COVID concerns as well. So in this episode, I'll talk about what affects your immunity and how to boost it. So please stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. I'm your host Colette, and I hope to educate and empower you to take charge of your health and well-being, preventing disease in the body and mind so that you can thrive in life. I will be sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. I will also discuss topics like yoga, which is the sister science of Ayurveda, health and wellness, nutrition, fitness, and mindfulness practices, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to help you to connect to each other. If you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend that you start by listening to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. Now, if you like the content, please subscribe to the show so the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. I've also set up a Facebook group for us to connect and to support each other, and I'd love for you to join me over at the Elements of Ayurveda podcast group. And now, here's the show. Hey there, and welcome back to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. This is Colette, and as the name of the podcast episode suggests, I'm going to be talking about the immune system and particularly boosting your immunity. I've covered the immune system in brief in other Q&A episodes. However, given the current situation with the COVID virus and our upcoming change of seasons, which we know affects our digestive system and in turn our immunity, it's a really important topic right now. So we're going to discuss in depth about the immune system, about boosting your immunity. But before I start today's discussion, I want to let you know that I have the very popular group discounted seasonal cleanse starting September 18th, 2020. I run this discounted group cleanse twice a year, the transition of the seasons between summer and autumn and between spring and summer. And the great thing about this cleanse is it doesn't matter whether you're in the northern or southern hemisphere. It doesn't matter what season you're going into because it's an individualized cleanse, which includes a 90-minute online consultation with me where I tailor the recipes, the yoga, the self-care and mindfulness practices to your needs. So this cleanse will help you eliminate any accumulated toxins in the body, bring your doshas and your body and mind into balance, and boost your immunity and ensure that your immune system is working optimally. Now, I'll talk more about the cleanse later, but if you want to find details, you'll find the link in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com. For the group cleanse, just go to the events tab and register there, book your online consult as soon as possible because there's only a certain number of slots available. So I'll discuss more about the cleanse later on, but let's get on to our topic today, which is boosting the immunity. And I want to start by discussing what is the immune system. Well, the immune system is made up of different organs, cells, and proteins which work together to protect our body from outside invaders like viruses and bacteria. There are two main parts to our immune system which work together, as I said. The first part is the innate immune system, which we're born with. And the second is the adaptive immune system, which we develop. When our body is exposed to foreign invaders, the immune system produces antibodies to protect our body from that specific invader. Then in the future, it will recognize when the same invader infiltrates our body and defend against it. So it's building up that adaptive immune system. Now, 70% of our immune system is housed in our gut, in our gastrointestinal tract, also known as the GI tract, which is approximately 30 feet long, and it runs from our mouth to our anus. Now, the lining of our gut is home to 100 trillion microorganisms. And this is called a microbiome. That's 100 trillion. That means that these microorganisms outnumber our human cells 10 to 1, which is just incredible. The microbiome is an ecosystem or community of microbes, and they're often referred to as the human microbiota, which consists of microbes and bacteria and fungi and viruses. Now, these are working together to keep us alive, to help us maintain balance, and to prevent disease. Our gut microbiome not only determines how our food is digested, but also what nutrients are absorbed and what toxins are eliminated. Our gut health also affects our hormones production, our energy levels, our sleep, our muscular strength, our central nervous system, our mental health, and much more. And there's a direct link between our gut health and the strength of our immune system. Therefore, it's of paramount importance that we take care of, maintain, and nurture our gut health. In a healthy gut, the good bacteria far outnumber the bad. But when the balance of the microbiome is disrupted, it's called dysbiosis. And signals are sent to the immune system to overreact, which causes numerous symptoms, both in the GI system and throughout the whole body, and in the mind also, as the gut and the brain are in constant contact with each other via the gut-brain axis. And this communication between the gut and the brain happens primarily via the vagus nerve. Now, I did discuss this in detail with Dr. Briere in podcast episode number 130, which is titled The Mind and the Immune System. So I'm not going to go into detail on the gut-brain axis today, but it is important to know that there is that constant communication between the gut and the brain. So therefore, what happens in the gut has an effect on what happens in the brain and vice versa. It's a two-way communication. So if you want to know more about that, check out that podcast episode number 130 with Dr. Briere. But let's talk about now, what are some signs of an unhealthy gut? Well, it could be signs like excessive gas or excessive bloating, distension, constipation or diarrhea. There could be heartburn or acid reflux. There could be sugar cravings or food sensitivities or food intolerances. There could be a rapid weight loss or weight gain, fatigue and lethargy, a foggy mind. Some signs of an unhealthy gut could be mood swings, depression, anxiety, sleep disturbances or insomnia, skin conditions, inflammatory conditions in the body, and also autoimmune disorders, among many more symptoms. So you can see that our gut health really affects our entire body and mind, because 70% of our immunity is housed in our gut. So it has a huge effect for our whole body. So let's now look at what's affecting our gut health and then having a knock-on effect on our immunity. So some things I'm going to discuss right now are sleep, sensory overload, medications, what we eat, when we eat, how we eat, our environment and lifestyle, and the big one, stress. So let's start with sleep. A lack of sleep or low sleep quality really disturbs our gut microbiota. So a major sleep disturbance these days is the blue light from our screens. And we all have them, right? We all have our mobile phones, our computers, and so on. So there's so many screens in our lives right now in the modern world. But what happens is this blue light from the screens delays the secretion of melatonin. And melatonin is a sleep promoting hormone that's secreted by a gland in the brain, and that maintains the body's circadian rhythm, and it helps to regulate other hormones as well. So things like our smartphones, our TV screens, computer monitors emit large amounts of this blue light. Now, a blue light filter can be used to reduce the blue light by adjusting the screen to natural color, and that will help to protect your eyes and also to promote better sleep. But ideally, we're turning off our devices, those screens, at least an hour before bed. And this will help to calm the nervous system and make sure that that blue light is not activating our nervous system. And also it will allow the melatonin to be secreted and help to promote sleep. Also in Ayurveda, we talk about the importance of getting to bed around 10 p.m. because around 10 p.m. that fire pitta energy starts to rise in the environment, and this can stimulate our body and mind also and give us the illusion of a second wind. So getting to bed before 10 p.m. will prevent this surge in energy, and therefore will allow the body to use that energy to digest your food and thoughts from the day, perform the detox, rejuvenate you for the next day. So that's the purpose of this pitta energy coming in at 10 o'clock. It's not to give us an extra boost to stay up and active. It's basically to do the internal house cleaning. So respecting these circadian rhythms is really important, and being in bed particularly by 10 p.m. and allowing that pitta energy to carry out the detox, the digestion, the rejuvenation, and in turn that will boost our immunity as well and allow us to feel fresh and alert and full of energy the next day. So if you're not familiar with the circadian rhythms, check out podcast episode number 8, and I go into detail on the circadian rhythms and the daily cycles. So on to my next point, which can also affect sleep, and that is sensory overload. We live in a world where the senses are under assault each day. This sensory overload can really play havoc on our nervous system, on our digestion, and in turn on our immunity. We really need to be mindful of what we expose our senses to on a daily basis. So having awareness about what you're exposing your senses to, and especially in the evening as you're trying to wind down for sleep, it's really important. When I work with clients, I really focus a lot on the morning and evening rituals, and particularly the evening rituals. So when I'm talking to a client, I really look at that evening routine and try to help them structure and implement a more calming evening ritual that is focused a lot on self-care and on promoting good quality sleep and promoting relaxation. So that's something that I really think is very important for us all to have right now, especially in this world where it's very much multitasking and always on the go, that we need that wind down period in the evening. Another thing that can really affect our gut health is medications. Many common medications like antibiotics alter our microbiota. So antibiotics are used to treat or prevent infection, and sometimes they're very necessary. However, they can also cause unintended damage by depleting beneficial gut bacteria and dramatically decreasing the richness of the gut community. So if you're in a situation where you need to take antibiotics, and again, they can be very necessary in some situations, it's really important to chat with your doctor or practitioner about the effect that this particular dose of antibiotics will have on your gut, how long you're doing it for, the strength of it, and so on, and inquire with them about how to help you maintain your gut health during and post antibiotic treatment. So really have that discussion with your doctor or practitioner at that time. So I just want you to be aware of that antibiotics can really affect your gut health. Also, sugar and processed foods. Eating a diet that is composed of highly processed foods and refined sugars and artificial sweeteners can really affect the quality of our dhatus or tissues. And as a result, this can compromise the barrier lining of our gut. Now, I talked about the nutrition of the dhatus in detail, and I'll put a link to that podcast episode in the show notes. But basically what we eat becomes our tissues. And so if we're eating processed foods or foods that the body doesn't recognize are artificial ingredients and so on, it means that the end result is our cells and tissues are going to be of poor quality. And so if our gut barrier is weakened, if the lining of our gut is made up of poor tissue quality and is weakened, then small particles like bacteria or small amounts of foods are able to escape into your bloodstream, where they are marked as intruders by the immune system and trigger the immune system into action. Now, this is known as leaky gut and can result in a continuous immune activation, and the inflammation that goes with it puts us at risk for a range of diseases that can compromise both our physical and mental health. Now, many processed foods also contain added sugars that also feed the bad bacteria. So we really need to be conscious of what we're eating, what we're feeding our families, looking at the labels of food, buying brands that you trust. There will be a time period where you'll have to do a bit of research and look at food labels. But once you have those trusted brands, basically where you can recognize the ingredients on the package, then there'll be ones that you automatically go to and buy. So a bit of research is needed here, or a bit of professional advice, but what we put in our body is of paramount importance to our overall health. Also, when and how we eat is really important. And I mentioned earlier how the gut and the brain are in constant communication with each other. Now, when our mind is in stress, the brain sends warning messages to the stomach, which can affect our digestion. We often feel it as stomach churning or stomach's in a knot when we're stressed out. And when our gut is upset, it sends messages to the brain, which can negatively affect our mood. So you can see there's that two-way communication. The gut expresses emotions the same way as our face does. And studies have been done on animals and humans showing that if eating when angry or in a stressful environment, the gut can express this emotional stress as secretions or contractions or spasms or even bleeding. So the gut will reflect our emotional state generated at the brain level. Eating while angry or stressed is considered a no-no in Ayurveda. Eating in front of your computer or TV screens really affects our digestion, as what we're viewing is taken in by our senses, and in turn our bodies react to whatever we're watching or we're reading. And this is really affecting our digestion because, according to Ayurveda, the subtle digestive nutrient fluid, which is called rasa, it carries the emotional charge into every cell of the body. And if our food is negatively charged, for example, if we're eating our dinner and we're watching the news, which is very stressful right now, not only is our digestion affected, but the rasa or the nutrient fluid will negatively affect all the tissues of our body because that food we're eating is taking on the emotional charge of what we're watching. So we really have to be careful about how we're eating and where we're eating. So if we're eating in a stressful environment, like working at a computer or watching the news or having an argument, then the molecules in the food take on the negative charge, which in turn affects our digestion. It affects our assimilation and our stress levels and our immunity. Okay, so that's really focusing on the food. Now let's look at the environment and your lifestyle. So it's really important to look at our work and home environment and be conscious of, is it a calm or a stressful environment? We want to make sure that at work, we're not creating lots of stress in our day, that we're managing our work life so that we're not in this cycle of stress and maybe coming home at the end of the day and reaching for a beer or a wine just to relax, or, you know, eating late or just watching TV or browsing social media just to kind of zone out. You know, all this stress has an effect on our body. Also, if we're working shifts, you know, shift work increases the risk of problems in the gut bacteria as well because it's not in tune with the circadian rhythms. And what we do each day, our daily habits determine our health and well-being. So if our actions are rushed or stressed, if we're multitasking, then this is going to send the body into stress mode, into that fight or flight mode, and we're going to be activating our nervous system. So what we want to do and what Ayurveda recommends is living in tune with the circadian rhythms, living in tune with the daily cycles. And Ayurveda recommends an ideal time of the day to eat, to study, to focus, to exercise, to rest, to relax. And, you know, that's why we call Ayurveda the manual to life. It gives us all these suggestions. And again, you can find details on the circadian rhythms, as I mentioned earlier, in episode number 8. But building a foundation of daily self-care practices into your day that are very simple will really help ensure that you're maintaining balance in the body and mind. I do have that 28-day self-paced daily habits for holistic health course, which is available to you at any time. It helps build a foundation of these daily dinacharya or self-care practices that are in tune with the circadian rhythms. And there's also lots of education in that 28-day online course. So you can check out the link in the show notes or just visit the website elementshealingandwellbeing.com. Go to the programs tab, the services and then programs, and you'll find the information there. Okay, to the final point, and what's the common factor to everything I just talked about that will affect your gut? It's stress. Studies show that when there is a surge of stress, we release cortisol, which can weaken the activity of the immune system and weaken our gut's intestinal lining against invaders. What triggers a stress response in each person varies widely, but we know our modern lifestyle can be a real stressor, so we really need to actively manage our day-to-day activities. So what can we do to boost our immunity and to ensure that our immune system is functioning optimally, especially as we transition through the upcoming seasonal change and with the stress of dealing with this COVID virus? Well, the good news is with the right approach, you can restore the GI tract to full health. And that means you can build a stronger immune system and a more balanced physical and mental health as well. Now, the first and biggest way to boost your immune system is by cleansing, by literally getting rid of the buildup of ama or toxins in the body. And, we're taking on toxins daily. And our body is good at getting rid of most water-soluble toxins through the urine, through the sweat, through the feces. However, there are those fat-soluble toxins that are stubborn, and they're often stored in the fat cells. And this is where an Ayurvedic seasonal cleanse comes in. Ayurveda understood the importance of our gut health over 5,000 years ago, and Ayurveda teaches us that undigested and partially digested food lingers in the body, leading to the formation of ama or toxins. And this ama or toxins is considered the bedrock of disease. So the best way to boost your immune system is a regular cleansing at any time of the year, really, but especially at the joint of the seasons. When we're transitioning into a new season, our body is overwhelmed with the change in weather, with the change in foods and so on. And our digestive system can really be affected. And it's also affected by any accumulated ama or toxins from the previous season. And all this really compromises our immunity, which is why when we're transitioning seasons, we see a lot of colds and flus and sniffles and allergies. So I do recommend doing a cleanse at least twice a year at the joint of the seasons, which is what Ayurveda recommends, from winter to spring and then from summer to autumn. And like I said, this will help get rid of any accumulated toxins in the system that accumulated from the previous season. It will strengthen your digestive fire, your agni. It will strengthen your immune system as well. And it will give you more energy, more clarity of mind. You'll just feel lighter and better. And as I mentioned earlier, I do have that online discounted group cleanse starting September 18th. It's tailored to each person, and it includes that 90-minute online consultation where we go in depth, and then I tailor all the foods and the yoga and the self-care and whatever else I think you need to bring you into balance. You get access to a private web page where there's lots of educational webinars, and then I will support you through the whole thing. That seasonal cleanse happens twice a year. This time, September 18th, and then I'll do another one in March, April of 2021. However, if those dates don't suit you, I do private cleanses at any time of the year. And the good thing about a private cleanse is that you get to choose your dates and you have one-on-one support from me. So I'll put that link in the show notes to both those cleanses, the group and the private. And you can also just check them out on my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com. The group cleanse is an event, so it's under the events tab, and the private cleanse you'll find under services and programs. Okay, on to the next point about how we can boost our immunity. Well, it's diet. We talked about earlier how the processed foods, the refined sugars really affect our gut health. Diet is a really important contributing factor to the composition of the gut microbiome, and studies show that the dietary changes result in substantial and rapid changes to the makeup of our gut microbiome. So that's really good news. It means that just by changing our diet, we can have a huge impact on our gut health. So you've probably heard this before in this podcast. I recommend a soul food diet, seasonal, organic, unprocessed, and local. Also, eating a mostly plant-based diet, so that 75 to 80% of your diet is mostly plants. These plants will reduce inflammation, and we know that inflammation is a huge cause of problems in the body. Eating lots of fiber, particularly soluble fiber, which comes from things like beans and lentils and oats and nuts and seeds. This soluble fiber feeds the microbiome and helps our immune system grow stronger. So that's really key as well, making sure you have lots of fiber. Of course, we know fiber is essential for elimination. And that's what Ayurveda focuses on too. We focus on the bowel movements. I talk about that a lot in my consultations because that's really important. Ayurveda considers one day without a bowel movement as constipation, like that's a problem. So you want to be having a daily bowel movement. You want to be looking at your bowel movements, and that's a really good way to check in and get a report card of what's going on in your digestion, in your health. Now, also during the transition of the seasons, there's a lot of confusion in the climate as it goes between one season and the next, and this results in confusion in our digestive system, and our digestive agni, or our digestive fire, is a little weaker. So nourishing your digestive system during this transition, giving it easy digestible foods, using digestive spices could be great. Things like black pepper and fresh ginger, and spices that work with your particular constitution, and eating in accordance to your constitution, especially during this vulnerable time of the joint of the seasons. Now, I can't give specific foods because, as we know in Ayurveda, there's no one size fits all, and it's very individual for everybody. That information you would receive in a private consult, but just being really mindful of what you're eating during the joint of the seasons, as I said, making sure it's easy digestible, always cooked, and eating seasonally as well, and using some digestive spices if necessary for you. So we really want to focus on our food, eating in a calm environment, away from the computer, away from your phone, away from the TV, but slowing down, allowing your body to take in the nourishment, and then rest and digest, not to hop up and get straight on the computer or go and do something straight after eating. Allow your body to rest and digest a little, at least 10-15 minutes after eating. The timing of our meals is also important. We talk about this a lot in Ayurveda. Eating your main meal at the middle of the day. This is when your digestive fire is strongest and it can handle the harder to digest grains and proteins. And also not to overload your digestive system in the evening. We want to eat a lighter meal before 7 p.m., giving our body plenty of time to digest before we go to bed at 10. All this will help the digestive system and in turn will help your immunity. Exercise is the next point. Exercise is very important for a well-functioning immune system. Studies indicate that exercise and physical fitness diversifies the gut microbiota, and the immune system is very responsive to exercise. However, we need to make sure that we're not overburdening the body with excessive or intense exercise, which can result in stressing the immune system. According to Ayurveda, exercise really needs to be tailored to each individual, to your particular constitution. I cover this in episode number 14 of the podcast. It's called New Year Health and Wellness. And we really want to focus on not pushing ourselves to the max. You know, we have this attitude about exercise in our society, which is no pain, no gain, and these high endurance sports. And I've talked about in the past how that's how I got burned out by over exercising. So I'm really want to help people understand that we should be exercising about 50% of our max, basically exercising where you can breathe through your nose. If you're breathing through your mouth or panting or, trying to grab your breath while exercising, you're putting stress on your body. So just have awareness around that. This is something I discuss. If you're doing a private consult with me, I would discuss with you individually and make suggestions for your particular constitution, your doshas. Okay. Other ways you can boost your immunity is via daily self-care practices or dinacharya, which we talk about a lot in this podcast. And one important daily self-care practice is mindfulness. Practicing mindfulness daily, taking some time each day, whether that mindfulness practice is meditation and or pranayama, breath work, whether it's a gratefulness practices, whether it's time just sitting in nature, journaling, being creative, doing a creative activity, being in your garden, taking some time each day that brings you into the present moment where there's no distraction. You can just be in the present moment and slow down is really important, because when we're experiencing elevated stress levels, as I mentioned earlier, our brain goes into that fight or flight mode, which can really impact the blood flow to our gut, because basically what happens when we go into that fight or flight mode, when there's stress, the body sends the blood to the extremities because the body thinks we have to fight or flight. The body doesn't know that you're just watching the news or you're having a heated discussion with somebody. All it knows is I'm feeling stressed. And so the body is like, okay, forget about digestion right now. Let's go send the blood to the extremities so we can either fight or run. So we really need to be aware of this, taking time each day to practice some mindfulness, taking time to eat in a calm environment, and be aware about when we're stressing our body, when we feel that stress rising. And the minute you feel that stress rising, getting to a point where your automatic response is to go to your breath practices. The breath is the easiest, the fastest, the cheapest way for us to calm our body down. And I've talked about this before, particularly in that podcast I mentioned earlier with Dr. Briere. Pranayama or breath practice, or just taking a deep breath, sends signals to the mind that everything is okay. We're calm. We don't need to go into fight or flight mode. And so just by taking a deep breath, having that awareness around when your stress is triggered, as soon as you feel your stress become elevated, whether it's in traffic, whether it's watching something on the news, taking a few deep breaths can really bring you back into the parasympathetic or the rest and digest system. We've all experienced how stress can affect our immune system, where we go through those periods of high stress, and then we sometimes even around the holidays, it's just the stress of getting ready for the holidays, and then the holidays come and we kind of try relax, and then our immune system is shot, and that's when we get sick. So taking time daily to practice some pranayama or meditation or the other mindfulness suggestions there to calm the nervous system, aid digestion, and that will really help to improve your immunity. So there you go. They're my tips for boosting your immunity. And I hope this info helps you to understand the immune system better, understand what compromises your immune system, and how to boost, maintain, and nurture your immunity. So thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. If you think that this episode could be helpful or valuable to friends or family, please share it with them. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the podcast. If you want, you could leave a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcast. I would really appreciate that. And if you want to support the podcast, you can do so via my Patreon account. I'll put that link in the show notes. It's also on the podcast page on my website. And thanks for listening. I really appreciate you tuning in. And if you want to share your comments or your feedback, please do so via email. I'll put the email in the show notes, or you can just go to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast Facebook group and send me a message over there. I always love to hear from you. Until next time, take good care of yourself, be well, and slán go fóill. Bye for now.